Yata for the sound of the bell. Mind calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment benevolent. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Amoga. Varochana Mahamudra. Mani Padme Jvala Pravartaya.
Please stand now for our chanting and recitation of the three refuges. Ishim Quimyam Ne Shibam Sam Se She
Shivam Samse Chemam Shale Samju Ilche Sangaya
And in English, I go for refuge to the Buddha
I go for refuge to the Buddha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
and realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma
I go for refuge to the Dharma
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings
I will penetrate the teachings
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha
I go for refuge to the Sangha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please return to your meditation for about 5 minutes, and then Ma'um will take the seat, in fact, right away, to offer a Dharma talk for us this morning.
Please join me in some stretching and into our meditation practice. Please come gather round for our Dhammapada reading and our Dharma talk this morning. Even though we are separated by place and by screen, just have a sense of being together across the miles and across the city, wherever we are. So our Dhammapada reading today comes from the chapter, The World. They are awake and find joy in the stillness of meditation and the sweetness of surrender. Hard it is to be born in human form. Hard it is to live. Harder still to hear of the way, and hard to rise, follow, and awake. Yet the teaching is simple. Do what is right, be pure. At the end of the way is freedom. Till then, patience. If you wound or grieve another, you have not learned detachment. Offend in neither word nor deed. Eat with moderation. Live in your heart. Seek the highest consciousness. Master yourself according to the law. This is the simple teaching of the awakened. The rain could turn to gold, and still your thirst would not be slaked. Desire is unquenchable, or it ends in tears, even in heaven. So, good morning, all you Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Happy to be with you this morning and just to spend this time hanging out together. So, our Dharma talk today is going to pick up where we left off last week. As you recall, last week, Haiyun talked about qualities of a Dharma student. Our training students, in particular seminary students, are asked to cultivate these qualities so that they can be of greater assistance to others. So the 4 qualities are humility, stability, gratitude, and sincere heart. Last week, Haiyun gave us a deep dive into humility. And some of her conclusions were that humility is maybe not quite what you think it is. It's not being self-deprecating, it's not groveling, but rather it is this sense of confidence, self-assurance, that you don't need to promote yourself in any way to be effectively with people. So this week, we're diving into that quality of stability. And I like to think of stability as sort of an evenness of mind, the ability to sit with whatever it is that is going on around you and to respond in an even and a wise way. So it's a quality that obviously is very important to seminary students, but if we can think of all of ourselves, we're students of the Dharma. It's important in all of our lives. It's also known as equanimity, and I like this term a little bit better than stability. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but I think they're similar. And equanimity gets at this evenness of mind that I'm referring to, not being pulled around by our habits and things that are going on. So this weekend actually was a training student weekend. And so our students come on Friday evening virtually. We come together virtually, do some practice together, and then have some conversation about our home practice. And then on Saturday, do a deeper dive into Dharma topics, presentations, things like qualities of Dharma students. So this Friday evening, we were, one of our topics of discussion was, see if I can phrase this correctly, How do you stay the course during hardship? And this is an interesting thing for us to reflect upon. So being a Dharma student is actually a pretty challenging proposition, because we ask that you integrate the practice with your everyday life. So the expectation is that every day, every morning, you do a formal meditation practice, you do some prostrations, you do some chanting, offering of refuge to the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha. And then throughout the day, that you engage in various mindfulness practices. In the evening, you're asked to do a little self-reflection in terms of writing things in your journal and looking at how your behaviors and habits are evolving and how they connect back to the teachings of the Buddha. And then there's study of scriptures involved. And with all of this, because nobody really lives at the temple, well, we do have 2 temple residents participating, but most people blend this with their daily life. And so they are facing all the typical challenges of everyday life in addition to doing these practices. And so blending the 2 together is a challenge. So work, children, whatever happens to be coming up during the day. And so we do spend a fair amount of time talking about everyday life, and this gets at our question, how do you stay the course during hardship? Because everyday life right now includes things like dealing with the aftermath of a very acrimonious election. It involves dealing on a daily basis with the pandemic and how that is affecting our lives. Dealing with anxiety, excitement, depression. And our tendency is to be reactive to these things. I know myself, I had probably more election anxiety than I would want to admit. And went away for a few days. I felt like I needed to just go away for a couple days this week to rebalance things. And so I did that. And so that was my way of dealing with this sort of hardship of anxiety. And my method was to play hard. So I slept in a tree house, I slept in a lake house, I visited 3 state parks, I went to the apple orchard, and just was really sort of outside, connecting with nature, not tuning into the media that was dominating my life so much. So when this question was asked during our Dharma student meeting, how do you stay the course during hardship? I think this pertains almost directly to equanimity. Some of the answers that came up were to stay in equilibrium, noticing the light in the house during the day, how it changes throughout the day from morning to evening. So it's just a small way of reconnecting with the present moment, coming back into balance, connecting with nature, connecting with the scriptures. Some of our students work with the Diamond Sutra. Others work with the Metta Sutta, a meditation on loving kindness. Cultivate curiosity was another response. So when feeling out of balance, just get curious. Returning to the breath. And one response I particularly liked was practice radical acceptance, openness to the struggles that are coming up. And engage in various forms of self-care. So all of these are pretty wise responses. This is about equanimity. So let's explore equanimity a little bit more deeply. As I said, you can think of this as an evenness of mind, not being pulled around by habits, by stuff going on in the world, not being reactive. In Sanskrit, there is a term, tatra maja tata, to stand in the middle. It implies kind of an inner balance. So tatra is all these things, maja is the middle, tata is to stand or pose, standing in the middle. And an image that we can find is that of the Buddha standing in the field, and one of his enemies released a raging elephant into the field. So this elephant is coming charging at the Buddha, just in this fit of rage, charging down the field. And the Buddha just remains still. The Buddha puts his hand up, and the elephant just lies down in front of him. Well, I can sort of think of, modern day analogies to this raging Buddha and the raging elephant and the equanimous Buddha. One example that comes to my mind is the election that we just went through. It felt there, and it feels to some extent this is still going on. We have a raging element charging down the field, and yet we have those who stand calmly, raising their hand, saying things like, "It's a time to heal." And that calms us all down, this sense of equanimity. Another another Sanskrit term for equanimity is upekkha, and that means to look over. And this has an observational quality to it. It's seeing the bigger picture. So upa is over, ikesh is to look, so looking over. The image that is often used is that of Kwanseumposa, the Bodhisattva, who hears the cries of the world and responds with compassion. So on the altar, I don't know if you can see behind me, there is a statue of Kwanseumposa with many arms, many tools, so that she has the right one to help those in need. And then this is another image of this little statue here of Kwanseumposa sitting like this in the pose of royal ease. So yes, hearing the cries of the world, but hearing those cries in such a way that she's not getting caught up in them or overwhelmed by them, so that the response, unable to respond in an effective way. A modern day translation of this that I can think of, we have this term called Kalyana Mitra, good spiritual friend. And I think in each of our sanghas, we have at least one, usually maybe even 3 or 4 people like this. So these are the folks to whom we tend to go for a listening ear, to be heard. And what's very valuable, sometimes we identify them formally, but most often informally. As we work with our ethics policies and procedures, we're going to identify some of these folks formally, so that if you have an issue, you can go to that person and you can be heard and listened to deeply. The Kalyana Mitra offers advice or offers, but mostly just listens in a very deep sort of way. And so the function is to hold a container, hold a space for the airing of the distress that is going on. So this to me feels a lot like Kwanzaa and Posao. Not necessarily getting caught up, but just hearing very deeply. And that can be healing in and of itself. So equanimity, as you can see, it's a very big topic in Buddhism. And we find it connected and mentioned in a lot of our key teachings. It's one of the 7 factors of enlightenment. So as we move along the path and become more and more awake, we eventually get to equanimity, which is one of the keys to seeing things, being able to see things clearly. We're familiar with the paramitas. We usually talk about the 6 paramitas. So may I be generous and helpful. May I be pure and virtuous. May I have energy to practice these kinds of things. But actually there are 10. And the last of the paramitas is equanimity, the practice of equanimity. And a few weeks ago, when Teresa was speaking to us, she talked about the Brahma Viharas. Equanimity is one of the Brahma Viharas. It's the 4 practices of love. And so those are loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And particularly when you can couple equanimity with compassion, that's a very powerful way of being in the world. One of the teachings I want to touch on just a bit more has to do with the 8 winds. And in the Anguttara Nikaya Sutra, Sutra number 192, chapter 4, the Buddha said to his disciples, when one is living in the world, when one has taken on becoming a self, 8 worldly things turn along with the world, and the world turns along with the 8 worldly things: gain and loss, fame and infamy, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. Being beset by the loss of a relative, or being beset by the loss of wealth, or being beset by the loss of health, one does not grieve, one does not get worn out, one does not lament, one does not clamor, beating one's breast, one does not fall into despair. So those 8 winds that the Buddha is talking about are things that distract us, take us off the path of practice. And the cure to that is coming back to this equanimity. So again, you can think of examples of these 8 winds playing out in your everyday life. So let's just take the first one, gain and loss. These are just simple top of mind examples. You may have better ones. So gain, you receive a stimulus check in the mail from the government. Loss, your hours at work are cut back or you lose your job. Fame, you win a scholarly award. Your bio is posted on the website. Loss, your boss receives a complaint about your behavior. Praise, somebody said to me recently, you really know how to do these Zoom meetings. You're pretty expert at it. Blame, the link you put out there did not work. I couldn't get into the meeting. So, pleasure. A bowl of pasta. We had some delicious pasta yesterday for lunch. Pain, not for me because I have an iron stomach, but pain for some might be indigestion after a wonderful meal. So, how do we not get dragged around by these 8 winds? There is a story we like to tell from time to time. You may have heard it before. And our equanimity at the moment is being with this rather fierce wind that is blowing things around outside. Well, we will get back to our story in a bit. So this is called We Shall See. One day in late summer, an old farmer was working in his field with his old sick horse. The farmer felt compassion for the horse and desired to lift its burden. So he left his horse loose. He let it loose to go to the mountains and live out the rest of its life. Soon after, the neighbors from a nearby village visited, offering their condolences and said, "What a shame. Now your only horse is gone. How unfortunate you are. You must be very sad. How will you live, work the land, and prosper?" And the farmer replied, "Who knows? We shall see." 2 days later, the old horse came back, now rejuvenated after meandering in the mountainsides while eating wild grasses. He came back with 12 new, younger, healthy horses, which followed the old horse into the corral. Word got out in the village of the old farmer's good fortune, and it wasn't long before people stopped by to congratulate the farmer on his good luck. "How fortunate you are," they exclaimed. "You must be very happy." Again, the farmer softly said, "Who knows? We shall see." At daybreak the next morning, the farmer's only son set off to attempt to train the new wild horses, but the farmer's son was thrown to the ground and broke his leg. One by one, the villagers arrived during the day to bemoan the farmer's latest misfortune. "Oh, what a tragedy! Your son won't be able to help you farm with a broken leg. You'll have to do all the work yourself. How will you survive? You must be very sad," they said. Calmly, going about his usual business, the farmer answered, "Who knows? We shall see." And then several days later, a war broke out. The emperor's men arrived in the village demanding that all the young men come with them to be conscripted into the emperor's army. As it happened, the farmer's son was deemed unfit because of his broken leg. "What very good fortune you have," the villagers exclaimed, as their own young sons were marched away. "You must be very happy." And the farmer said, of course, "Who knows? We shall see." And so this story, in this story, I think the Buddha is talking about age with this constantly changing stream of events in our lives. The examples we've been talking about so far are, they're pretty mild, having pasta and indigestion and things like this. But, some really serious stuff crops up in our lives. It's very painful when we lose a loved one. It's very painful when we feel the grief of our changing climate, when we see disharmony in our society, all of these kinds of things. So one thing that I like to do when encountering these more painful situations is to think of the 5 remembrances. And this is about impermanence and how we live with impermanence. So some of you may know it. If you do, just place your hands in Hapchang for a moment. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground on which I stand. So I like this reminder that our actions are the basis for developing equanimity. Sometimes I think if I just sit still, equanimity will arise and will come out of the blue spontaneously. And oh gosh, I will feel so much better. But in reality, this is something we have an opportunity to cultivate all the time. And Buddhist teachers have lots of advice on this. So I'm just going to share a few examples, and then hopefully you will think of your own ways of cultivating equanimity. So the first is that we need to act with integrity whenever we can. So this allows us to be confident in our actions. We're in a better position to have this sense of equanimity about what we've done if we act with integrity. So acting with integrity might be things like when you're giving a Dharma talk, to try to give that from your heart, and not just to be sharing thoughts of others, things like this. Acting with integrity is trying to live the Buddhist practice in our everyday life. It's very good to tune into Sunday service, but we have opportunities all the time to engage in our Buddhist practice, and this is acting with integrity. A second word of advice is to act with faith in the teachings. This is called Shraddha. And so when that raging elephant is coming toward you, Shraddha, faith that the teachings will prevail, is maybe what allows you to stand there, just holding up your hand. Third piece of advice: cultivate practices that balance the mind, calm, concentration, mindfulness. We started with several of these. Our training students had many good examples of how to cultivate practices that balance the mind, to just be working with its balance on a daily basis. Cultivate wisdom. In our 6 Right Livelihood Guidelines, we speak of wisdom, cultivating wisdom, as cultivating don't know mind, being open to what arises in every moment, finding connections between Buddhist teachings in your life. And the more we do this, the more we're able to have a sense of equanimity. Cultivate freedom from reactive tendencies. And if you think back, think of yourself maybe retrospectively over time, and notice that if you've been doing this practice a while, are you less reactive than you used to be? The changes are slow sometimes and subtle, but if we pay attention, we can see that yes, perhaps we are less reactive. Just to give you another sort of example that arose for me last night, sometimes, and actually maybe this gets to a near enemy of equanimity, which we have to be careful of, and that is avoidance. And so sometimes I avoid things, and then in the middle of the night, it comes up for me and I'm awake and I feel like I have to process it in some deep way. So what I was thinking about last night was related to the weather forecast of high winds, which we had just a minute ago. And we have scheduled some tree work to take down the limbs of the tree. That hasn't happened yet. And so I was worried, oh gosh, are the tree limbs coming down in the middle of the night? And I was getting into this state of reactivity, thinking I should get up, go to the computer, check and see if we have a scheduled date for that. But I didn't. What I did instead was just pay attention to what's going on in my body. Where's the tension arising? Do a little body scan. Let it go. So that's one way of being less reactive. So I want to share some personal lessons learned, and then we'll end with a little meditation on equanimity for all of us. So what I've learned is, yes, I'm getting better at this equanimity thing, but it does take work. I can't just stand back and expect it to happen. I've learned it's important to allow time for self-reflection and self-care. It's important to open myself to feedback. Oftentimes, people will see things that I'm doing that I don't necessarily see for myself. This helps me cultivate wisdom. And one of the important lessons that I've learned is not being attached to outcomes. This is kind of a big one. When I sat down to do the Dharma talk today, I was hoping it would go well, but if it didn't, I can't be attached to that outcome. I've prepared what I'm prepared, and I have to share what I have to share. So not being attached to outcomes is an important aspect of equanimity. And then last lesson learned, I said, be aware of that enemy of avoidance, but there's another enemy that we have to be aware of, and that is indifference. So when things seem too big to hold, I find myself sometimes lapsing into indifference. I can't impact it. Therefore, I just can't connect emotionally. I can't care right now. And so equanimity is not indifference. It's remaining engaged even when it's hard, even when we don't want to remain engaged. Okay. So with those thoughts, I invite you to continue to explore your own examples of equanimity. And I want to share with you this meditation by Jack Kornfield. So please settle yourself into sitting posture. Close your eyes, deepen your breathing, allowing a sense of calm to settle in. And then listen deeply to these phrases. May I be peaceful. May my heart be at rest and balanced in the midst of all things. All created things arise and pass away. Joys, sorrows, pleasant events, people, buildings, animals, nations, civilizations. Rest at peace in the midst of a changing world. May I learn to be at peace with the arising and passing of nature, with equanimity and balance. Feeling this peace, acknowledge as well that all beings are heirs to their own karma. Their lives arise and pass according to their deeds and the conditions created by them. May I bring compassion and equanimity to the events of the world. The happiness and peace of others depends on their actions and not on my wishes for them. I can hold them in a compassionate heart as best I can, but their happiness and suffering depends on their actions and deeds. May I rest in the equanimity and the great natural balance of the heart. May I be peaceful. Thank you for being part of this Dharma talk today. And now, a few announcements. We could turn the camera toward Ayun.
Thank you so much, Ma'um. Hello to everyone out, wherever you are. Think of pleasure and pain. Pleasure being that we were able to sit under the big tent out there for so many nice meetings outside this summer and fall. Pain being that the wind just knocked the whole thing over. So we're going to have to go out and pick it up and take it apart now. But it was worth it. We had some nice meetings. So we have a couple really exciting things coming up. Next week, we are actually going to have our Thanksgiving service. And many of you have been to the temple for our Thanksgiving service and know that it has some song offerings, some poem offerings. And so we're going to try to integrate that service into a virtual format. So that's next week. And then the following week, we want to hand the service to you, actually. And on Thanksgiving Day, whether you are alone with your small family or wherever your circumstances might be, what we would like you to do is to make a little recording on your phone and send it to us, or however you do recordings, and send it to us at Ann Arbor Zen Temple at gmail.com. And so what we'd like you to do is to say what you're grateful for. I know in these times, sometimes it's hard, it gets cloudy what we can be grateful for, but when we really look for it, we can find those areas of deep gratitude. So, and then on the Sunday following Thanksgiving, we're going to have a beautiful service with an integrated sort of video offering of all of you together, with your people who are individuals, families. We'd like you to limit it to like 2 minutes a person or 5 minutes a person. If you'd like to offer a song or a poem, go for it. We really want it to be joyful and sort of pushing back on that elephant coming at us of the pandemic and really offering up this beautiful Thanksgiving. So send it to us on Thanksgiving Day, no later than Thanksgiving Day, so that we can put it together in this video montage. And if you want to have a poem, a song, or just what you're grateful for, please send it along. The other thing that we wanted to announce that we're really excited about is we're going to be partnering with Hope Clinic in Ypsilanti, and they are a place where people in need go for food and pharmacy items. And what they told us that they're very, very needy for at this point is kind of toiletry and pharmacy items that are non-prescription. So they're very much in need of ibuprofen and acetaminophen and aspirin, either children's or adults. And if you can open up your medicine cabinet and see it, they are in need of it. So anything from toothpaste, toothbrushes, deodorant, soap, shampoo, the whole gamut. And so we're just really blessed to have this opportunity to help our neighbors in need. And so each week, we're going to have a box on the front steps of the temple that says Hope Clinic. And so you can just stop, go in the front gate, as we always do, drop something off in that box, and Julie Angeli, one of our members who actually connected us with Hope Clinic, will be coming by to pick it up and take it to them each week. So, it can be very basic stuff, or it can be something special, the same way we all like a little special soap or something. So we ask you to really open your hearts, open yourself up to being generous to our neighbors in Washtenaw County who are in deep need. Other than that, we also have Recovery Dharma coming up at noon today. And any other points that you can think of?
Practice period is in its last, I think, 2 sessions.
Okay, practice period's in its last 2 sessions, so we'll have the tea time after that is finished for everyone to join in on if they like. And finally, I just want to thank you again on behalf of all of us at the temple for your continued financial support and helping us to make the clocks tick around here and pick up the awnings and things like that. We're so deeply appreciative. We feel the connectedness to you all, even though we're not together physically. So thank you so much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Haji Sinem to end with the 4 great vows.
So we can turn the camera toward Haji, please.
Beforehand, this afternoon at 3 p.m., we were to have a special memorial service for Lucy L'Esperance, the beloved mother of Teresa L'Esperance. And Teresa and her husband Nojat decided, for safety reasons, that we would postpone that service until we could safely get together. And I so appreciate their sincerity and compassion in making that decision on our behalf. And I know a lot of us are going not to be able to get together for Thanksgiving as we would like. And so it's sad. It's happening across the country. Yet, it is for the reason of safety that we do this. And we're hoping here at the temple as Hayun described, that we can offer a beautiful Thanksgiving service this coming Sunday, and also a special gratitude and offerings the next Sunday. So I encourage you to make that a part of your time as these special days come up. So let's remember the 4 great vows. They're pretty awesome to think of how to, moment by moment, put them into action for the benefit of all beings. All beings, one body,
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Endless, blind passions,
Endless
Blind passions.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates, one mind,
Dharma gates, one mind.
I vow to penetrate.
I vow to penetrate.
The great way of Buddha,
The great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
Songbul Hashipsyo. It's a beautiful Korean saying that let's all awaken together. Songbul Hashipsyo. And thanks, Maum, for your lovely Dharma talk today. Well done.